With the release of Volume 26 of the ReZero light novel on March the 25th, we were introduced to 3 more shop-exclusive side stories, one featuring Vincent, one featuring Rem, and the final one featuring Emilia. This video will contain a summary for the side story featuring Emilia and contains information on what the Emilia and Anastasia camps were doing at the Petelguese watchtower after Subaru, Rem, and Lewis were teleported away. This summary couldn't have been possible without Ice from Witch Cult Translations, so make sure to follow him on Twitter and be kept up to date with ReZero content. The story starts several hours after Subaru and the group were teleported away from the Petelguese watchtower. The Emilia and Anastasia camp congregate and think about going to rescue Subaru. However, Anastasia interjects, essentially saying that it wouldn't be too easy. Quick throwback here, in chapter 1 of arc 7 we learned that Wallach's borders were closed, so it would be very hard to get into the country anyway. Furthermore, Anastasia further clarifies that they can't just drop what they're doing and look for Subaru, as they have more important matters to attend to. The group reflect on what it means to have completed the trials of the watchtower. Remember, the tower had many countermeasures to prevent people from accessing the tower. It had the sand time, which was broken by Subaru and Beatrice, and it also had Shula watching over the tower. Julius adds in more information, stating that the witch cultists would try to raid the tower to get to the shrine that Satella was sealed in. In other words, now that the defensive measures are all inactive regarding Sandtime and Shula, the only real problem is the witch beasts. So now the witch cultists can easily get to the shrine where Satella is sealed, since Emilia completed the trials. Emilia didn't take this into consideration and offers a suggestion. How about we just keep it a secret that we conquered the tower? That way the witch cult won't know and they won't raid the tower. Beatrice then states that it wouldn't be so easy, as secrets can leak out very easily, with Ram supplementing this by reminding Emilia of the time she tried to hide Puck's Hatsumaki. So for those unaware, this is actually a reference to the Memory Snow OVA, so go watch that if you haven't already. We also find out that the Hatsumaki event was 1.5 years ago, so Arc 7 is 1.5 years after Arc 2, which is pretty interesting, but it's good that we finally have a canon time reference. Moving on, we see that Beatrice is unhappy with Maylee since Maylee spoke about the cursed dog. Of course, she was the culprit back in Arc 2, so there's obviously some bad blood between them. Remember, it was Beatrice who removed the curse from Subaru, which was actually caused by Maylee, so Beatrice is unhappy. Beatrice states that just because Subaru has forgiven her, she personally hasn't. Anastasia actually calms down the situation and tells them to get back on track. They have 2 main issues, the Watchtower and Volcanica. They have to solve those issues before moving on to a neighbouring town, maybe the town that they visited back at the start of Arc 6. They would also need to go back to the royal capital and speak to the experts, so essentially the sages of Lagunica, so Miklatov and the Council of Wise Men. Beatrice states that she doesn't want to open the watchtower to someone like Roswell. She's scared about the Books of the Dead and believes that if Roswell got his hands on that information, it may renew his devilish motives. Ram states that she'll handle Roswell and to not worry about it. Emilia confirms that Ram will deal with Roswell. Also during this, Anastasia and Julius are reforming their relationship after Julius's name was eaten and Anastasia came back outside of her old, so they're being a bit awkward. They move on to their next topic, Maylee. This is something brought up by Echidna. Maylee has the mini scorpion with her, by the way. And Beatrice mentions that with Maylee's divine protection, she is essentially a free ticket to get to and from the tower, since she can fend off the witch beasts with her divine protection. Echidna jumps in by saying that Maylee is essentially invaluable, because if they wanted to get experts to the tower, the witch beasts would be a problem. Therefore, by having Maylee there, she could assist them in getting into the tower. However, her worth isn't just good for the kingdom of Lagunica, it's also beneficial for the witch cult. Which is actually pretty funny considering the organization that Emilia was a part of was actually headed by Mama, who is the Sin Archbishop of Lust, Capella. So maybe that's the reason why Capella wanted Emilia in before Capella is playing like some 5-dimensional chess here. The main reason for Emilia's importance to the witch cult is because the witch cultists apparently want to unseal Satella, and since the witch cult need to fend off the witch beasts by having Emilia in their ranks, Emilia could solve that problem with the witch beasts whilst the witch cult will unseal Satella. Anyways, Anastasia then states, would Emilia be forgiven for what she's done if she were to help the kingdom by carrying out the duty of keeping the witch beasts off the Ugria sand dunes away? Emilia states that Emilia was a very bad girl in the past. Of course, Anastasia doesn't understand. Emilia continues by saying, but Subaru forgave Emilia, right? Neither I nor Beatrice can forgive what Emilia did by laughing it away, but after we let out all of our anger, I reckon we'd be willing to forgive her. Beatrice jumps in and tells Emilia to not speak on her behalf. Emilia then tells Emilia to apologize. This is actually the exact same thing that Emilia did to Roswell in the latest episode of rezero. Emilia is against it. Well, Emilia isn't against the idea of apologizing, but against the idea of being forgiven, because people like Subaru and Emilia are soft, whereas others may not forgive her even if she did apologize. So think of someone like Petra, who did not forgive Roswell after he apologized. Something like that. Emilia further tries to convince Emilia, and Emilia actually states that she will apologize alongside the rest of the group so they can apologize together so Emilia wouldn't feel alone and scared. Emilia buries her head into Emilia's chest, and Julius states that he will put in a good word to the knights about Emilia. Which, by the way, just a quick editor's note, I find it funny considering his name was Ethan, and Julius went from Pristella to the Pleiades Watchtower. So it's like no one knows who he is. So how's he going to put in a good word if no one knows who he is? But anyways, moving on. Emilia's role would be to work for the kingdom and helping experts come to and from the tower for redemption. For the witch cult, they will need to deploy the Knights of Lagunica, however it won't be a problem for now. Ram and Beatrice then suggest that Emilia use Volcanica to defend the tower for now, and Emilia wonders if Volcanica will listen to her. And that's the end of the side story. So the next side story will most likely be Emilia going to speak to Volcanica. A quick thing I want to point out, nowhere in this side story was Rem mentioned. Rem at this point would have been awake by now, either at the Valachian camp or running away from Subaru. Most likely the first option though. The fact that no one has mentioned her or anything implies that people may not have their memories of her anymore despite her being awake. That will be all, so thank you for watching and thanks to my channel members.